Part 106. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1054. Chapter 1051. No one is allowed to rob Gretel. How big your heart is, how big your dream is. Specifically speaking about the materialization of the world of meditation, perhaps it should be that the world will be as rich as the breadth of knowledge. If you have never seen the snow-capped mountains on the arid plateau, you will not know that when the peaks reach a certain height, they will be covered with snow all year round. If you haven't seen the towering Tower of Babel on the top of the mountain, you won't know that human beings have wisdom and power. They can bring down thunder, blizzards, and violent winds for their own use. They can prop up and cover the top of the mountain, keeping it warm in winter and cool in summer, and invulnerable to wind, frost, rain and snow. Protective cover. I have not crossed the sea, I do not know the changes of the ocean, I have not crossed the new world, I do not know the vastness of the earth. In addition to the macroscopic world, the microscopic world cannot be ignored. Gretel slowly closed his eyes and recalled a series of discoveries and verifications he had made since arriving in this world. In this world, there are bacteria, fungi, and bacteria in a broad sense such as Treponema pallidum, confirmed by silver staining experiments on the blood of syphilis patients. There are even tinier microorganisms like viruses. In terms of material structure, there are molecules, atoms, ions, and electrons. Electric current passes through the metal wire, generating a magnetic field, and electromagnetic conversion. The world of meditation ripples gently. From all directions, powerful energy surged like a tide, enveloping Gretel. Although the energy is powerful, it is not violent, but is extremely soft and mellow. Just like standing barefoot on the grass, warm spring water rises little by little, covering the instep, the calf, the waist, and the shoulders, wrapping the whole person warmly. Greet sighed comfortably. This kind of advancement is really easy. It is equivalent to just lying down and waiting for external forces to immerse into the world of meditation. The meditation shell wrapped around the body is like the semi-permeable membrane of cells, absorbing useful power and rejecting useless power, or simply throwing it away. However, it seems unnecessary. His intuition told him that the power coming in now was all good and necessary. Don't give up anything. It's best to accept everyone who comes and stuff them all in. The original appearance of the world is that all kinds of forces exist. Of course, control still needs to be controlled. Gretel took a deep breath and began to fully absorb the energy poured into him by the will of the world. The first step is to strengthen yourself, especially the core of meditation. Increase storage capacity. Speed up your calculations. That brain that is built into a biological computer with a meditative core, give me a boost and work hard to grow. Make the synapses several times longer and dozens of times longer, and speed up the calculation even more. The invisible energy turned into a tangible storm, which condensed, rotated, and injected over the institute, and even formed a tornado. In the city of Tanakh, light rose from the two tallest pyramids at the same time. A faint golden light and a thin black mist emerged at the same time. In a moment, the golden light condensed into a golden eagle, and the black mist condensed into a black snake, floating above the pyramid, looking into the distance. It seems, something powerful has appeared. It smells so good, hiss, it smells so good. Want to take a look? Go and see, hiss, our territory, hiss, our stuff, take a bite. The golden eagle stretched out a leg, let the black snake wrap around it, flapped its wings, and soared into the sky. Soon, in the research institute, Archmage Heinz frowned, walked out quickly, took his disciple and flew into the air. Stop, the black robe on his body was billowing, and on the magic robe called the White Bone Robe, 18 skeletons were floating and screaming in unison. There is a circle of black mist flowing outside the robe, but it is thousands of ghosts restrained by the magic robe, spinning rapidly around the master. In terms of aura, this 18th level archmage looks more like a god of death than a snake god walking between life and death. This is a research institute established by the Magic Council. This is our territory. Stop, outsiders, and don't disturb us. This is the country of the eagle. It's our territory, the eagle god retorted even louder. The communication between the gods and the caster did not make any sound, but there were extremely strong fluctuations that exploded in the dark. Everything that appears on this land, including flowers, herbs, monsters, and treasures, belongs to us. Outsiders, you stop here and don't even let us see it. That's too much. This is not a treasure. Archmage Hein's face was as dark as water, and his black robe was billowing. Next to them, Archmage Zhonings flicked his sleeves, and a looming barrier stood between them and the research institute. In the city, another ray of light rose into the sky, centered on the top of the mage tower, shooting straight into the sky, then turning down and covering half of the square. The snake god turned back suddenly. When he turned to Archmage Heinz, his voice was already full of anger. "You. We have no intention of being enemies," Archmage Heinz said coldly. "We don't want to start a war, nor do we want to rob you of your belongings. As of now, the agreement between the Parliament and the Eagle Country is still valid. The fluctuations you feel are the elemental power attracted by the Lord of Plague as he advances." "That's nonsense," the snake god interrupted with hiss. "We have seen what you call elemental power. It's not like this. The treasure down here is stronger and more fragrant. It's the power we need. Get out of the way. That is the love and attention of the world. It is a gift from the world." Archmage Heinz refused to give in. "The indigenous gods are the indigenous gods, so ignorant. The magicians of the council, every magician who can rise to a high level, will always encounter several gifts from the world. In other words, if a magician cannot receive even one gift from the world, it means that his strength in magic research is very average, his achievements are hard to describe, and he can only move forward in the footsteps of others. For such a magician, there is no problem in the low level, and he can barely climb to the middle level. If he wants to set foot in the high level, or even enter the legend, there is basically no hope." Although, the scene Greet created was a bit too big. Archmage Heinz thought with envy and hatred. During the advancement process, he had absorbed the largest gifts from the world, and the scenes were less than half of Gretel's. That was when he advanced to level 18. Moreover, it is still Greet, the little mage of level 10, who has advanced to level 11 safely inside. He and his disciples are guarding the door outside, and have also alerted the controller of the mage tower in the city. Just as he was thinking of this, there was a loud roar from the ground, and Cyrilla rushed straight up. She did not completely transform into a dragon, but spread a pair of huge silver wings behind her back, pretending that she had activated the dragon flying technique. "What are you doing?" "Gretel is advancing. No one is allowed to disturb him." Beside her, Ashmunzinger stood shoulder to shoulder with a spear and a straight face. The female elf with long silver hair unhooked the long bow on her back, stretched the bow and knocked an arrow. The female elf with short green hair held a spear in both hands, and the garland on her head moved automatically without wind. It was obviously a high-quality magic item. Two are at level 16, one is at level 15, and one is at level 18. This combination is enough to block the snake god and the eagle god. Not to mention, the mage tower in the city is also ready. The eagle god flapped its wings in the air a few times, calmed down his momentum, and no longer planned to charge forward. Of course, it did not intend to give up this opportunity. It just stepped back half a mile and snorted coldly. "You outsiders are all cunning. Since you said so, I will watch here. If any treasure really appears, you'd better not stop it." Archmage Heinz snorted and backed away slowly. Cyrilla was pulled by Ashuedge and stepped back a little, keeping one position behind Archmage Haynes. Ashuej asked in a low voice. How long will it take for him to advance? How many days? Cyrilla tilted her head and thought for a moment before answering uncertainly. It seemed that it took 4 days last time, and it was shorter last time, only 3 days, but I heard that level 10 to level 11 is a major advancement, and it may take a longer time. I can't say. Archmage Haynes. Damn it, so this means that we need to stand here for 3 days and 3 nights, or 4 days and 4 nights, or longer. This is so boring. No, we must find a way to adjust. Go down and open the shield of the Institute. Archmage Haynes whispered to his disciples. Archmage Jennings nodded, turned around and flew down. After a while, there was a buzzing sound below, and a layer of light red, dark yellow, crystal white, and light green shield rose up like a veil, covering the entire research institute and even the entire ring pass. The heavy earth power of the mountains. During the rainy season, rain pours down. The never-ending howling wind on the mountain top. And deep in the mountain, the magma that once spewed violently but now sleeps peacefully. These forces were guided one by the magic circle and intertwined into a shield outside the institute. It is soft, thin, and appears to be translucent, but it is extremely tough and cannot be easily broken. The eagle god looked at the protective shield with fear and stepped back a little. On its paws, the snake god hissed. I can't rush through at once, these outsiders. They retreated slowly until they were 5 or 6 miles away, and found a hilltop to rest. Seeing them pulling away, Archmage Haynes also descended. Cyrilla flapped her wings, landed firmly, and began to pace in front of the research institute. So boring, so boring, so boring, Sister Uge, let's have a barbecue. Can you grow berries? The last time Greet advanced, a great elder from the natural god sect planted them. Give me the berries, they're so delicious. In the research institute, Lin held Mr. Trochka in his arms and looked away. He breathed a sigh of relief and walked slowly inside. Although he is only level 9, and although he is useless in high-level battles, at least he can block Gretel with all his strength. In the other direction, Apa grunted and scratched his hooves on the ground, and the silver light shone on a pair of much smaller antlers. It's so annoying to stand on the ground and not be able to jump. Next time you advance, think of a way to attack targets in the air. Outside the meditation room, Bernard was holding Gretel's precious oak staff, leaning against the wall and sitting on the ground. He rested his head on the oak staff and muttered softly. Uncle Oak Staff, Uncle Oak, let's just stay here, we can advance just as we stay here, you don't have to think about entering. On the top of the oak staff, 10 leaves whirled in the wind and turned like windmills. At the top, a small spore has protruded, as if it is about to sprout a new leaf. Fortunately, he happened to finish climbing a mountain today and rushed back from the top of the mountain. Otherwise, Gretel forgot the oak staff a few miles away, and the oak staff couldn't reach the common advancement when he turned around, so he would have gone crazy. It's possible for him to turn into an oak tree and fall down, hitting Gretel on the head. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thanks to @bookfriend20170322215828 for the reward of 100 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1055. Who has bad intentions for him, who is fighting for him, who is trying to protect him, and who is determined to fight? Gretel didn't even know. He just focused on it, immersed in meditation, and used the will of the world to strengthen himself. The brain at the core of meditation, that biological computer, strengthens, and strengthens. The computing power of the supercomputer Tehilite can reach 3,168 trillion operations per second. The limit of biological computers should theoretically be much higher than that of supercomputers. Chips made of proteins can accommodate hundreds of millions of circuits in an area of 1 square millimeter because one storage point is only 1 molecule in size, and the storage capacity can reach 1 billion times that of ordinary computers. According to legend or in the novels Gretel read in his previous life, the Godhead allows the gods to handle the prayers of hundreds of millions of believers at the same time. Gretel estimated that even if it didn't reach this level, the amount of calculations required for a legendary mage to process high-level magic would be extremely staggering, right? Effort. Strengthen the biocomputer. The density of biological computer components is 1 million times higher than the density of brain neurons, and the speed of transmitting information is also 1 million times faster than the thinking speed of the human brain. The potential of the meditation core still needs to be explored. Of course, in addition to the brain, the strengthening of the body cannot be left behind. Gretel's first round of building the core of meditation and shaping the light man only went deep into the anatomical structure of the organ. This time, Gretel decided to go one step deeper. In addition to brain cells, other cells must also keep up. Bones are composed of bone tissue, periosteum, and bone marrow. Bone tissue is divided into bone matrix and bone cells. The bone matrix is calcified extracellular matrix. The new part is woven bone with randomly interlaced collagen fibers, which gradually transforms into parallel arranged lamellar bone. Osteocytes are located inside bone tissue, and osteoprogenitor cells, osteoblasts, and osteoclasts are located on the surface of bone tissue. The characteristics of various cells are, the arrangement is. Greed was already dizzy just by pinching out various types of cells. Next, he had to arrange these cells one by one in the skeleton of the meditation core. He really couldn't do it. Such a large quantity. There are 40-60 trillion cells in the human body, arranged one by one, and they cannot be eliminated. Meditation core, biological computer, on. What type of cells look like, which type of cells are in which bone, roughly how they should be arranged, when they are activated and when they are asleep, I have already stored them for you. Guide me to the will of the world, copy it row by row, and strengthen the cells in the core of meditation. Take your time, I'll pinch the cardiovascular part again. Facts have proved that even the abundant gifts of the worlds will have limits. If you want to use the will of the world to finally need 40-60 trillion cells, it is not a process that can be achieved by advancing from level 10 to level 11. Greed squeezed and squeezed, finishing squeezing the skeletal part and the cardiovascular part. The meditation core was working hard, guiding the power, and strengthening the biological computer, bones and cardiovascular part. Still wanting to continue strengthening his muscles and internal organs, Gretel's whole body suddenly trembled slightly. In the dark, there was a will that told him. Hello. That's almost it? That's it for now, don't ask for too much. Okay. Anyway, when I advanced before, they came in batches. If you want to strengthen the entire meditation core again, it will be almost done by the time you reach level 15 or 6, right? Gretel regretfully stopped channeling his power and left his meditative state. Outside the door, the oak stick head was full of green, and another leaf quietly unfolded. The boss has advanced successfully. Bernard exhaled, spread out his hands and feet, and lay on the ground. For several days and nights, he held the oak staff and waited at the door of the meditation room. When I was sleepy and tired, I wrapped myself in a blanket and had a light sleep. Even in sleep, my ears are always close to the ground, listening to the surroundings. The boss's oak staff can't bear any damage. Success. A commanding voice asked. Bernard jumped up and took the oak staff into his hand. Taking another closer look, it was Archmage Heinz standing in front of him, with a majestic look on his face and his gaze fixed on the top of the oak staff. Is the advancement over? That's not necessarily the case. Bernard put the oak stick back. Thinking about it, it wouldn't be like this. He took the oak stick out again and displayed it openly for him to see. I heard the boss say before that this oak staff has been with him since he first became a nature priest. When he advanced to a level, the oak staff also increased a level, the oak staff sprouted the 11th leaf, and only it means that he has successfully advanced to the priest level, and there is also a mage. What, there are also mages? Mage. Does this mean that the natural priest has advanced to level 11, but the mage is still stuck at level 10? Archmage Heinz has never heard of this gossip. He glanced at the meditation room from a distance with regretful eyes, sighed, and nodded. Okay, let him continue meditating, I won't interrupt. Hey, advancing twice has the benefits of advancing twice. At the very least, you can absorb power twice, and your body and mind can be strengthened twice. But then again, except for freaks like Gretel, who can have two professions going hand in hand and advance together every time. Priests and mages appear to be both spellcasting professions, but their sources of power and ideas are very different, and some are even incompatible. Of course, ancient priests like nature priests are a little better, but not much better. As for professions such as warriors and mages, one is a spellcaster and the other is a combat worker. One needs to strengthen the body and the other needs to strengthen the spirit. Want to practice both magic and martial arts? Want to use a flash technique, dance with two swords, and rush into the enemy group to drive a big windmill? If magic and martial arts were so simple, transformation mages wouldn't be able to create a lot of giant turning spells, increase strength, agility, defense, or even turn the caster into a berserk warrior and a formidable fighting machine. Obviously, magicians feel that it is much more efficient to study spell bonuses than to work hard to become a warrior. If you need anything, tell me. If you need supplies, if you want to adjust the element supply in the meditation room, tell me too, he told Bernard, and Lynn, who hurried over and stood on the other side. Advancing is the biggest thing. Even if all other spell functions in the entire institute are stopped, we must keep his side. Lynn nodded. Archmage Heinz took a deep look at the meditation room again, released his mental power to feel it, and made sure that there were no abnormal fluctuations inside, then turned around and left. Well, before Gretel's advancement is completed, it's best to write another letter to the teacher to ensure that the teacher gets the news faster than the Lord of Thunder. Sometimes, whether you can get the benefits depends on such a small time difference. What surprised us is that after completing the first stage of research, Master Nordmark has begun to advance. During the advancement, he received a large number of gifts from the world, and even alarmed the Eagle God and the Snake God. Archmage Heinz spread out his pen and paper and began to write a letter. After Gretel made slight adjustments, he has already started the next stage of advancement. Level 10 Mage, advanced to level 11 Mage. An 11th level Mage means that you can cast 6 level spells, which means you have taken another big step on the path to being a mage. And the 11th level Mage is also the beginning of the materialization of the meditation world. Greet closed her eyes again and concentrated on meditation. This time, wonderful changes occurred in his meditation world. It's not like in the teacher's meditation world, where electric grids are intertwined, electric charges form clouds, branch-like chain lightning bursts out continuously, and lively ball lightning floats here and there. It was not like what Gretel had heard about, the meditation world of Lady Ender in the star system, where the stars in the sky were constantly rotating and even the light was distorted. It's not like the information his senior brother showed him. In the legendary meditation world of the necromancy system, the energy of death is surging, and ghosts, skeletons, and necromancer knights are constantly roaring. This time, in Greet's meditation world, the grass is swaying and the green trees are tall and tall. Although they are just shadows, we can still see the natural cycle. The green leaves wither and turn yellow, return to the soil, decompose into humus, and enter the natural cycle again. One by one, translucent human bodies were floating and rising around Gretel. Following his thoughts, the corresponding parts of the human body lit up one by one. Or a warrior in his prime, muscles, tendons, and bones are broken and retracted, and then spliced and reassembled. Or a young child, with a bright red heart beating thumpingly inside the translucent body. Soon, a green vine was inserted from the femoral artery or brachial vein, and followed the blood flow to the heart. The deformed heart shone brightly and gradually became healthy. Or the elderly, with high blood pressure, high blood lipids, or silicosis, have clean saline poured into their lungs, and the dirty water is washed out again and again. Or a full-term pregnant woman with a narrow pelvis, placenta previa, umbilical cord wrapped around the neck, and various situations, whose abdomen is cut open to take out the baby. Bones, muscles, cells, blood, tissue fluid, red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, bacteria, fungi, viruses. Rui and Ruau appeared around Gretel. The hyphae of penicillium sway slightly and Staphylococcus aureus grows around it, creating a ring around the penicillium. The virus looks like just a small dot, many times smaller than bacteria, but it is constantly churning and iterating. An invisible light shines on it, creating a colorful glare. Greet smiled slightly. Well, this is the meditation world he wants. When he understands the world more deeply, when he understands the mysteries of the human body more deeply, and uses his mental power to directly interfere with reality, will he be able to directly cover the recipient and restore the other person to health directly? To put it another way, when he becomes a legend, this kind of meditation world can also be used directly as a teaching space. Well, these are things for the future. While Gretel patiently absorbed the elements, and the next phase of the will of the world that was poured into it, covering his body with the core of meditation, inducing energy to strengthen himself, he quickly used his brain. This time to advance, which spell should you build? Do you want something that can be cured, something that can be beaten, or something with other special functions? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Downstairs from my house, 2 floors away from us, there is a family that is closely connected. Dabai has already come to your door to do nucleic acid tests and take environmental samples. Meow is crying and scared. Will he be locked up for another 14 days? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1056. It is said that every time Gretel advances, a spell will be engraved in the meditation world. That's right, it's pretty strong. Outside the research institute, Cyrilla and Ashuej had nothing to do. They had eaten everything from barbecue to grilled fish, beef stew, lobster sashimi, oysters, and conch. Sarah even started to look through her inventory, opening shells and conches one by one and taking out the beads inside. Those that are round, even, good in color, and big in size are reserved for jewelry, those that are not attractive. Use it to play marbles if you don't like it. Ashu Isang leveled a piece of land, and Cyrilla blew out a breath of ice air. The ground was smooth, and some ice balls were raised and some ice depressions were sunk, perfect for playing marbles. Compared with Cyrilla, whose stomach is like a bottomless pit, Ash Moon Song can only taste a lot of food. While she was producing various sweet and sour berries and berries to serve as garnishes for Cyrilla, she chatted. What will be engraved this time? Will it be a natural spell? Will it be a healing spell? It's hard to say. Cyrilla lay on the ice, grabbed a pearl, and flicked it forward. The silver blue eyes are illuminated by the pearly light, and they are radiant. Gretel inscribes spells and always does as he pleases. I hope he can get a powerful attack spell from the research institute. Lin dragged a string of floating dishes out and brought food and drinks to the two ladies. Well, they don't necessarily need it, but the institute has to give them to them and can't just leave them out. Gretel has always been soft-handed before, too soft-handed. As long as he has a few powerful offensive spells and can bombard everyone indiscriminately, he will not let others not take him seriously. No matter what, there must be at least one op. I don't think so. Ashued shook his head. A level 10 cub, even a level 11 cub is still a good cub from the elf family. Why do children want to kill everyone? He doesn't have to do too much damage to make nature hate him. It would be good if he engraves a protective spell, or a teleportation spell or something. Well, it's best to use a protective spell. Who knows what dangers you may encounter when you go out. High protection will never go out of style. I have protection. Cyrilla shook her fist vigorously. She lay on the ground, supporting the ground with her left hand, holding a handful of pearls in her right hand and shaking them, and pearl powder swished down between her fingers. With me, I can definitely protect him. Gretel, well, it's best to engrave the transformation spell this time. It would be great if you can transform into a dragon. Although Gretel's level is still low and she can't turn into an adult silver dragon like her, but the little silver dragon is also very good. It would be best to be able to stably transform into a little silver dragon the size of a cat and safely change back again. Leave the rest to her. The cost-effectiveness of the transformation technique is really low. Unknowingly, Archmage Heinz also came over and joined their discussion. I hope he can engrave a necromantic spell. In fact, the plague spell last time was good, and we can develop on this idea. Impossible. It's impossible for Gretel to use necromancy. The silver dragon girl jumped up immediately. After a pause, she seemed to feel that it was a bit dangerous to argue with the 18th level archmage. She took out a golden obsidian and snapped it. I bet on transfiguration. Archmage Heinz looked left and right, and decided to play with her. Anyway, if you win by chance, you can give all your gambling money to Gretel as an advanced gift. He took out a dark ebony bracelet. There is a 7-level spell control undead sealed here, which allows people to control some undead creatures in a short period of time. In certain situations, it is quite useful. I bet the disease spell will be advanced. I still bet on protection spells. Ashu Isong had no choice but to join. She took out a green seed from her bracelet and gently placed it next to Cyrilla's golden obsidian. For example, Life Guard, Steel Guard, or Death-Proof Barrier will do. Lin looked left and right, thinking about what he could bring out. Before he started to dig into his pocket, Cyrilla held him down. Stop guessing. Or, go and see how Gretel is progressing. Lin's level is low again. Poor again. I traveled to the New World and probably lost all my money. He is still Gretel's friend, but he still doesn't make money from him. In the meditation room, Gretel first eliminated offensive spells. Unfortunately, there are too few offensive spells he can use. Electricity. Chain lightning. Ice. Extremely cold. Fire. Super double fireball. Light. Oh, forget about the light system, he doesn't know any of them. He said that when he and his senior brother were blending together to rub out the laser, they haven't even started yet. After thinking about it, Gretel ruled out protective spells, and, some auxiliary spells, such as flight spells and teleportation spells. Without him, these are not what he is good at, and he does not practice well. It would be a waste to use the engraving opportunity once upon a time on a spell that you are not good at. The spells he is good at are engraved in the world of meditation with the energy of the world's will. Because they can be adjusted in a wide range, the bonus ratio can reach 100% or more. For the spells he is not good at, the bonus ratio is said to not even reach 50%. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so be decisive in maximizing your profits. As for the problem of insufficient protection, well, on the one hand, we rely on equipment, on the other hand, we rely on natural force for early warning, and on the other hand, Sarala, it's up to you. Silver Dragon's thighs should still be able to be hugged before level 15 or 6. After level 15 or 6, there should, maybe, there is a new way. After excluding these, there are not many suitable spells. Greet was very selective and quickly found a new favorite. Targeted killing technique. Well, he has actually known this spell for a long time. But this time when he came to the Eagle Country, he made a new wave of improvements to the spell so that it could be linked to distinguish bloodline change. In fact, if you think about it, this spell model interface may be able to hook up more things. It is currently known that it can hook bacteria, and various pathogenic bacteria. Parasites can be attached. As long as they can be identified and locked with mental power, they can be attached to the spell interface for targeted killing. Various forms from eggs to adults can be attached at once or in sections. Viruses can be mounted. Those identified using distinguish lineage change can be mounted. In the future, those locked using other methods can also be mounted. Of course, things like chlamydia, mycoplasma, chlamydia, spirochete, and plasmodium should be able to be hung in it as long as they can be identified and locked. By the way, is it possible that certain cells, such as cancer cells, can also be hung in and swept away with targeted spells? Regardless of whether it is possible or not, in short, let's finish the interface first. By the way, it's best to make it a universal interface so that you can connect whatever you think of in the future. Who knows if there is anything in this world beyond his current knowledge that needs to be killed? Gretel concentrated his mind and framed the interface part first, and then communicated the next part. He learned it from Elder Irwin, but he did not learn the directional killing technique, which he later learned from Elder Wood. However, after Gretel's long-term use, analysis, and changes, this spell has been split into several parts. One of the parts is specifically responsible for the scope of spells. So far, Greet's control range can be as small as 5 centimeters on a side, about 1/3 the length of a mouse. At its largest, it can reach about 2 square meters. With a squeeze, it can treat 16 people at a time. No matter how small or large it is, Gretel's current mental strength or control ability cannot bear it. Of course, with the gift and support of the world's will, Gretel can perform extreme operations. He worked hard to build the spell framework and narrowed the adjustment limit, narrowed it, and then narrowed it again. Shrunk to 4 centimeters. 3 centimeters. 1 centimeter. It seems like it can't be reduced any further. But it's enough. Targeted elimination of certain cells can be controlled within a very small range. For example, there is an unlucky person who has endometriosis and the ectopia has reached the ovary. When the time comes, we need to kill the ectopic endometrium in a targeted manner, but we cannot kill the normal uterus that is just around the corner. Is this range enough? So is fine. Then the next step is to expand. Get bigger. Get bigger. Get bigger again. Covering 5 square meters, 10 square meters. Not enough, I hope it can be increased to 100 square meters. Work hard. Expand a little more. Hope can cover 100 people, 1,000 people, a village, a city, a forest. I hope that when a great plague comes, with this spell, walking through villages and cities, we can contain the plague. Greet, come on. The adjustment and expansion of the spell's range soon reached its limit. However, Gretel had a vague feeling. The current range of the spell is controlled by his own mental power and magic power. In the future, if his mental power can be spread far enough, and if his magic power can provide such killing, this directional killing technique can completely cover a wider range. So be it. Finalized. Gather. Engraved. After I found most of the disease-causing bacteria, I did part of this myself, memorized part of medical microbiology, and I can use the discoveries of the mages to share the rest. Found most of the parasites, some by memorizing, most by rubbing. Determine the detection methods for most epidemic viruses. This really can only be relied on. I hope the magicians at the Institute can do more, and I also hope that after the paper is published, more spellcasters will join in. Then, when the time comes, I can say. No, actually today, I can already shout it out. Although, for now, it's still a joke. From today on, I am the controller of the plague. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. The latest news is that one of the households downstairs was a close contact and was taken away to centralized quarantine. Others in his family are in close contact and are quarantined at home. We are currently not closing the building and will not be disturbed. Since the nucleic acid test was done yesterday and it was fine, and the nucleic acid test was done today and it's fine, it should not lead to the closure of the building. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1057. When Greet walked out, a blazing, almost impatient gaze was focused on him. The intense gaze made him stop subconsciously and scratch his hair. What's wrong? I'm just advancing to a higher level, and there's no danger, Celera, don't worry about me. I'm not worried about you. Cyrilla jumped over and took his hand. As soon as she got close, she covered her nose and stepped back. You stink so much. Go wash up quickly. Well. Although the meditation room has long-term solidification cold and heat resistance, allowing people to meditate at the most comfortable body temperature, but I haven't taken a shower or changed clothes for 5 or 6 days, and my whole body still emits a strange smell. If you don't feel the smell, others will feel uncomfortable. Especially Miss Silver Dragon, thanks to the Dragon Clan bonus, her nose is extremely sensitive. Greet blushed, turned around and ran away. I took a good shower, doubting myself that I might have used half a ton of water, and then I walked out refreshed. As soon as they went out, Cyrilla came up to them and asked impatiently. How is it? How is it? Has the advancement been successful? Which spell have you inscribed on it? Archmage Hein's lips twitched and he began to retreat quietly. Which spells a magician has learned, especially which spells are inscribed during the advancement process, are his absolute privacy. Generally speaking, except for magicians who are still in the learning period, their mentors will definitely know. They need guidance from their mentors, and even their fellow apprentices may not know. As for relatives and friends, some magicians will choose to tell, and some magicians will choose to keep it all secret, or only give out a small part of the information. Hide the most critical part, or even give some wrong information. These are lessons learned from the long history. Magicians who leak this information at will are often targeted with this information. Many are dead. Died. Well, Cyrilla is an absolute family friend, so it's okay to listen. Miss Uedge is an elf, maybe they have their own code of conduct, that is their own business. However, he, an 18th level necromancer, should have his own code of conduct, and he must not cross the line by relying on some familiarity. Oh! Why are you leaving? Cyrilla saw it and called him loudly. Greet also smiled and shook his head. It's okay, Archmage Heinz. You have taught me a lot during this period of cooperation. I believe you and Black Crow Swamp will not have any ill intentions toward me. Not only is there no malice, it's completely in the palm of your hand. If you are willing to switch jobs and come to the necromancy school, if you want a research institute, I will give you a mage tower, and if you want a mage tower, I will give you a group of working necromancers. Whoever you want will be given to you. Well, Your Excellency, the immortal said, let the legend be guaranteed. Even if Gretel doesn't want to join the necromancy school, Black Crow Swamp still treats him as half one of his own. Malicious. Non-existent. Archmage Heinz thought about it and felt that it would be a good idea to stay and listen. Thinking like this, he took 2 steps forward and heard Greet say, "What I am engraving this time is the directed killing technique in the healing technique." Archmage Heinz. Ashui Song. Lin. Cyrilla, why don't you engrave the transformation spell? Why don't you engrave the transformation spell? Woohoo, I want the little dragon that little Gretel turns into. She turned from sunny to cloudy and cloudy to overcast in an instant, grabbing Gretel's arm and swinging it around. Gretel had to try to comfort her. We'll talk about it later. Now that I don't have enough strength, it's still dangerous to transform into a dragon, isn't it? In the future, when I can transform freely, I will definitely show you the transformation. Several people nearby looked at each other. Come on, it's not an offensive spell, it's not a defensive spell, it's not a necromancy spell. The house takes all. Okay, I lost the bet. Here, my gambling money. Archmage Heinz was the first to take out the ebony bracelet. He patted Greet's hand, told him a few words about how to use it, then turned around and walked away. Greet was still dazed when she saw him swaying 3 times and even humming softly. Gretel. Why haven't the recipients of my gifts thanked me yet? Your gift recipients are happier than me. He wanted to catch up and say thank you, but Ashu Isong had already stepped forward and patted the green seed into Gretel's hand. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised, and his eyes were delighted. Okay, I lost the bet too. Here, this is the seed of Guardian Tree. Although it is not as strong as the mother tree, it is still very strong. The key is that this tree is very capable of growing, no matter what harsh environment it is. Can grow. As he spoke, with a slight tap of his fingertips, he saw a small bud sprouting from the seed. AI-11 Uge retracted her hand, and Xiaoye retracted her hand. After using mental power to stimulate it, it will grow very fast and not consume much. This kind of tree has roots that will penetrate deeply into the ground and a solid crown. It will provide you with a safe small world, and it can also provide early warning. Plant a tree and you won't have to worry about sleeping peacefully. This is too precious. Gretel wanted to push back. AI-11 Uge has already held down his hand, pushing his palm into a fist. Oh, when we come out of the elf island, everyone should bring a handful of this seed. A forest guard like me can cultivate it myself. Take it. You also have our bloodline, this is what you deserve. Greet couldn't win against her, so he had to accept the seed and carefully put it into the ancient vine bird given by Elder Tapros. He was laughed at by Cyrilla and stuffed the golden obsidian. After receiving the gifts one by one, he thanked him, immediately rolled up the paper he had just finished, and knocked on the door of Archmage Heinz' study. Your Excellency Archmage, this is the result of my recent research, and it is also the source of my power for this advancement. Before sending it out, please give me some advice. Every wrinkle on Archmage Heinz' chubby and swollen face was smoothed out. Well, so dealing with Gretel is really comfortable. He will remember all your kindness to him. It is true that every mage can see published papers. However, simply reading journals and papers, and communicating with the author of the paper to understand his thoughts and ideas are completely different things. He nodded happily to Gretel, holding the manuscript paper in one hand and storing the chip in the other, and read from the beginning carefully. As I read, my brows gradually wrinkled. What's wrong? Is there a problem? Gretel frowned when he saw him, and her heart twitched. Although he had conceived and pondered this paper for a long time, his own ideas always had some limitations. What if there are any logical loopholes? What if? At this moment, Archmage Heinz raised his head. He read paragraph after paragraph, and couldn't bear it anymore, so he had to vomit. This, tiny pathogenic factor. The Archmage awkwardly read the description on the paper. It's this way from beginning to end, so why can't you give it a separate name? It's hard for you to write, and it's awkward for others to read. Well, Gretel actually doesn't really want to take advantage of others. In the final analysis, he only discovered the yellow fever virus. There is still a long way to go before he can define the microorganism virus and distinguish it from other microorganisms. Selfishly, he hopes to wait until the characteristics of the virus can be truly determined. For example, it is a small, non-cellular organism with a simple structure, containing only one kind of nucleic acid, and must be parasitic in living cells and multiply by replication. Name him again. This work can be done by him or others. The honor of naming does not necessarily have to go to him, and it is best if others can do it. But Archmage Heinz is already urging. You have proven that this pathogenic factor and bacteria are not the same thing. At least give it a name. Whether it is easy to use or not, first have a name and then name it. Greet, okay, let's call it virus, I'll add it. Damn it, do you have to copy the paper again, or don't write it in the manuscript and store it in the chip? There are no selection, copy, or one-click replacement functions in the chip. Artificial intelligence is too troublesome. Well, you can call it whatever you want. Anyway, it's easy to get sick if you get it, and it's very poisonous. It's not bad to call it a virus. Archmage Heinz tasted the word virus, nodded, and continued reading. After reading it through, I have no doubts about the structure and logic of the paper. I only raised a few questions. Why did you ask them to collect tobacco? Do you think there is a virus in it? Let's try it. Gretel spread his hands shamelessly. I heard something the other day that the land was well planted, with no problems with sunlight, moisture, soil, and no bugs, but there were inexplicable spots growing one after another. I just wanted to do an experiment to verify. So, this is the next phase of research direction of the Institute. That's definitely not the case. This is the Institute of Tropical Infectious Diseases. Which infectious diseases that are more common in the local area are our research directions. For example, malaria, or other strange diseases, it's up to you to find them. Got it? His tone was too natural. Archmage Heinz couldn't help but feel a little vigilant. Are you leaving? Well, I definitely won't leave. Gretel immediately shook his head. I have just advanced to level 11, and I still need to consolidate it. I still have a lot of 6th level spells to learn. It takes a year and a half to learn so many spells, but the Institute is not mine alone, so I must learn it. Leave it to someone else to take charge. Archmage Heinz couldn't help but laugh. Not to mention those low-level mages, even he could only follow Gretel's ideas completely and develop a vaccine for another disease. If you want to innovate, you are still unable to do so. Gretchen is willing to stay for a while. Great. So, have you decided which spell to learn first? Do you want the old man to recommend some? I have complete spell information and secret experience here. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Thanks to @ting07518 for tipping 1000 starting coins. Thanks to @bookfriend2020112022743625 for the reward of 500 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Giolan 2020. Chapter 1058. Which 6th level spells are compulsory and which are optional? Which ones should be learned first and which ones can be taken slowly? When he came to the New World from Nevis, the Lord of Thunder had already given him some teachings. Although it is a relatively general and principled statement, based on the theory, a list of spells can naturally be derived. Senior brother Baebo came to the New World and took Gretel with him for a while. For several months, Baebo had sorted out the 6th level, 7th level, and even higher level spells from their effects, interrelationships, and low-level to high-level learning sequences for his junior disciple. In the past 6 months, in addition to immersing himself in researching viruses, vaccines, and analysis, Gretel has also paid attention to magic and already has a plan in mind. However, Archmage Heinz took the initiative to inquire and offered to provide information, and Greet also respectfully asked for advice. What do you recommend? What magic do you think is useful and would you recommend learning it? Ah, there is no magic, it is completely irreplaceable. Archmage Heinz laughed helpfully. In general, when venturing out, it is best to have a set of magic with various functions: attack, defense, detection, movement, and of course assistance. Some of the magics of each type can be substituted for each other, and some it's hard to find a replacement. But, of course, there are always some magics that are particularly easy to use. For example, offensive magic. I especially recommend you to learn Dissociation. The 6th level spell has the best single target attack, and even many 7th level spells are not as good as it. He took out a thick hardcover book from his space bag and slapped it on the table. With a bang, the momentum was astonishing, and the glass in front of the two people jumped at the same time. If the symbol of a 5th level mage is the fireball technique, then the symbol of a level 11 mage is undoubtedly the dissociation technique. A green beam of light will kill everyone and destroy objects. Whoever sees it will be afraid. You know, roughly equivalent to Avada Kedavra. The difference is that the dissociation spell can be resisted by spells such as Spell Invalidation Barrier or Anti-Magic Field, or the person being attacked is physically strong enough, in human level strength, or it may only be seriously injured. As for Avada Kedavra, apart from that inexplicable love and sacrifice, it seems, as if, there is no other way to resist it. But Gretel's focus is not here. In addition to the relatively cheap price of the dissociation spell, the spell materials only require a piece of natural magnet and a pinch of ash, which can also be eliminated by casting a spell without materials. What he is more concerned about is: what is the principle of dissociation? What type of power does it use? Why does it cause such an effect? What kind of advanced low-level spell is it? Can it control its range, such as reducing it to 1 square centimeter? Within, or forming a linear cut? Well, Archmage Heinz really has a headache. When meeting Greet, a person who is inquisitive, asks why in everything, and wants to change before he has learned the magic. If it were his own student, he would have yelled, "Get out and think for yourself." Dissociation is from the school of change. He is from the necromancy school. Everyone's thoughts, ideas, and direction of magic affinity are all different. As long as you know how to use the dissociation technique, the next step is to practice fast and accurate shots, and be able to fire continuously or even stagger blockades. Why should we dig into it? Let people from the school of change do this kind of thing. However, in the face of Greet's inquisitive eyes, Archmage Heinz could only rack his brains and continue speaking in order not to lose his dignity as an 18th level Archmage. This is the difficulty of the dissociation technique: there is no low-level spell in front of it. It must be said that there is, probably, magic trick. The current analysis of the principle of dissociation does not have a particularly convincing conclusion. It is just speculation. Since its casting material is natural magnet and there is no substitute, its principle may be related to magnetism. Because the power is too strong and cannot be separated, there is currently no way to control the range, or, may I ask the Archmage of the Change Department for you? After this accident, Archmage Heinz no longer dared to make random introductions, and only recommended a few decent magic spells. While recommending, I slapped a thick information booklet on the table. For example, for defense, you have to choose between Anti-Magic Field and Spell Invalidation Barrier, and Star Cloak is also very good. Among the attack magics, lightning chain and flying palm are very cost-effective, and you can just learn 2 of the fire magics. As for auxiliary spells, it is best to learn true seeing and detect thoughts. By the way, gem jump is indispensable. It can help you use a gem as a position to return from thousands of miles away. Oh, this spell not only allows you to teleport yourself, but also brings people with you, Archmage Heinz said with a smile. After finishing laughing, he looked Gretel up and down and shook his head again. But I can only bring medium-sized creatures. I'm afraid I won't be able to bring a silver dragon. Gretel immediately pushed the spell to the end of his learning list. Jumping, what kind of jumping? Isn't it interesting to evacuate alone without taking Cyrilla with him? Of course, I accepted the information booklet of Archmage Heinz. I couldn't accept it. The Archmage tried hard to threaten. Gretel reciprocated the favor. In addition to researching new diseases and vaccines, there is another direction in the Institute that is particularly noteworthy. It is that kind of strange cells that are particularly good at corruption. He looked at Archmage Heinz sincerely. I have an intuition that this kind of cell may be hiding a big secret. Well, in addition to trying to feed it, we should also study why it has such special properties. Archmage Heinz Why? When he read Greet's research before, he felt that this direction gave him a very strange feeling. Now that Greet has solemnly warned. Don't worry, I will keep studying. Then it's up to you, Gretel breathed a sigh of relief. It was really difficult for him to study cancer cells, especially when there was no microscope or PCR. Let Black Crow Swamp mess around, maybe you can use magic to get something. You can also try injecting it into animals to see what happens, of course, never inject it into humans. Big things will happen. Archmage Heinz plunged into cell research. Greet reorganized the paper, gave it to Lynn to help write references and acknowledgements, and sat down to write a letter to the teacher. Both sides have been drafted and sorted out and sent out using the Tower Spirit. Next, it's time to study and wait. How would the teacher respond? Regarding the fact that I will stay in the New World for a while and will not return to Nevis for the time being, what instructions will the teacher give me? Regarding the list of spells that you have sorted out and prioritized for learning in the near future, what revisions will the teacher make? Regarding your thesis, what questions will the teacher have to discuss with you? Also, about whether the teacher would praise me for advancing so quickly, well, forget it, I guess even if the teacher is happy, he won't express it in front of him. Alas, it is inconvenient to send letters in the Eagle Kingdom. Only the most important news can pass through the Mage Tower and go straight to the Tower of Babel, which consumes a lot of energy. After the Tower Spirit of the Babel Tower receives the news, it has to be forwarded to the teacher. I don't know how long it will take for it to be seen. Gretel didn't know that the message he sent had a very high priority from the Lord of Thunder, almost only ranked behind the messages from the legends. Of course, given that there is not necessarily one piece of news from the legends a day, in fact it is the first priority. Unless a disciple happened to come to seek guidance, the Lord of Thunder would definitely be the first to read Gretel's letter. It cannot be said that they are exactly the same, but they are almost 90% overlapping. The 2 letters flew from the hands of Gretel to the Lord of Thunder, and from the hands of Archmage Heinz to the Immortal. The Tower Spirit of Babel Tower received these 2 letters almost at the same time, and forwarded them to the 2 legends at the same time. Gretel advanced so quickly. The pale skull of the Immortal Lord spun around in the air, causing the black robe to fill with mist. The black robe suddenly opened, covering the letter chip burned by the Babel Tower Spirit. For a moment, the chip shined brightly. Well, this new paper, identifying bloodline, new plague and new vaccine, special cells. What a pity. Why is this child not from Black Crow Swamp? As long as he is a disciple of Black Crow Swamp, all the resources at hand can be given to him, and he can become a legend in one go. He spun twice in the air, then suddenly sank and landed on his seat. At the same time, a skull rose from the Tower of Sleeplessness, bang 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 bang, and knocked its skull against the study window of the Lord of Thunder. "Christine! Christine!" the skull clicked and shouted. "Open the window. I have something to discuss with you, about your disciple. Open the window." The Lord of Thunder is also reading the letter. As a legend of the plasticity system, there were quite a few things mentioned in Gretel's paper that interested him. Just when I wanted to do some experiments and explore, there was a bang on the window. No need to discuss. Little Gretel is from Thunderhorn. A flash of lightning suddenly surged on the window, and the soft electric grid opened outwards, directly popping the skull out. Whatever he wants to study, we can provide it here. Gretel didn't know that the two legends had another small quarrel over his belonging. At this moment, he was lying on the table, facing a lot of information, and was in a dilemma. Which one should I learn first? On the left-hand side, the oak staff leans lazily in the corner, and the 11 green leaves are feeble. On the right side, the ancient vine bird sits quietly on the table, waiting to fulfill its duty of storing space. On the window sill, the lightning kitten curled up in a ball and licked its fur lazily. Licking and licking, he suddenly jumped up and a bolt of lightning shot out of his eyes. The electric light twisted and expanded, and for a moment, it transformed into the image of the Lord of Thunder, looking down at Gretel. "You did a good job, old teacher. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's the last 4 days of the month, everyone save your monthly passes. There should be a monthly ticket sprint at the end of this month. I don't know if it will be the last 3 days or a few days. Please vote for me then. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1059. Old teacher. Greet almost fell off the table. Such a good lightning cat, whom he had hugged and played with countless times, and Cyrilla had held and played with even more times. Why did he suddenly become the Lord of Thunder? In other words, what did he do and say along the way, and the teacher saw everything through the eyes of the lightning cat? Thinking of his boasting to the female snake and the golden eagle warrior, "I am the youngest son of the god of thunder, and the lord of plagues," and being looked at by all the teachers, Gretel wished he could die, or give himself a dissociation shot with a backhand technique. Oh, I haven't started learning the dissociation technique yet? That's okay. Lord of the Plague, huh? The human figure woven with lightning floated up and circled lightly around Gretel in a small circle. Gretel stood upright, staring at the ground with his head lowered, not daring to move. "Teacher, that's what fools the natives oppress others. I didn't want to go into the necromancy system. Researching vaccines can't be considered a necromantic career." As he spoke, although his head was still hanging to the ground, his back gradually straightened up. The lightning humanoid snorted. "Let's not talk about this for now. Let me test you. What kind of magic did I use to come here like this?" "Ah, the teacher is taking the exam in class." Gretel's shoulders stiffened. "If you pass this kind of quiz in class, everything will be fine, although there will be no reward. Failing the test, well, depending on the difficulty of the question and the mood of the Lord of Thunder, there may be different consequences, such as being sarcastic, being hit on the head by magic missiles, or being sent out to complete a troublesome task. It should be projection." Gretel turned his brain crazily. Projection can create a phantom of oneself, allowing one to see, hear, and even retain part of the ability to cast spells through the phantom, but the casting distance of projection shouldn't be that long. Maybe this is some kind of modified version of projection. It is indeed a projection technique, but it has just been changed a little." Seeing that Gretel answered correctly, the Lord of Thunder's voice with a touch of sarcasm also gained a little more warmth. "This lightning cat is a lightning elf that I endowed with intelligence, and it carries my mark. Therefore, I can project it briefly through this mark." "Ah, teacher, have you been watching this?" "How is that possible?" The lightning on the humanoid body crackled. After that, he remembered that Gretel really didn't understand this, so he softened his tone again. "Super long distance projection consumes a lot of energy. If I hadn't received your paper this time, I wouldn't have deliberately positioned this lightning cat for projection. By the way, this time the projection is over, remember to find a thunderbolt where there is plenty, let it absorb a little more energy." Greet nodded vigorously. "Receive. Must. Tomorrow I will climb a snow mountain, insert a lightning rod on the top of the snow mountain, put the lightning cat on top of the lightning rod, and hide in the valley by myself. Fill it with energy, and the next time you encounter a crisis, you might be able to alert the teacher's projection to come and fight for you." "Okay, let's get down to business." The lightning humanoid slowly sat down on the opposite side. Even though it might just be in a sitting posture, it was actually floating, with his hands crossed and placed in front of his lower abdomen, and he let out a thunderous sound from his mouth. The voice of the Lord. "What you wrote in the discussion section at the end of the paper, if you were in my position to preside over it, where would you start? Which direction is more important, and what direction is more likely to be linked to what direction? There are some things that Greet himself is not sure about, and it is difficult to write them down in the paper. However, when it comes to gossiping with the teacher, you can talk about it casually. I think that trying to see the virus may be a direction. For example, using electron flow to illuminate, this method can not only detect viruses, but also detect other subtle things. It may help us analyze the microscopic world. I have tried the method you mentioned." The projection of the Lord of Thunder waved his hand, interrupting Gretel's words. "Not only have I tried it, but your senior sister has been trying it since she discovered the electron flow. However, the shadows seen are very messy and basically unclear." "Wow. Senior sister is mighty." "Senior sister has been trying hand-rubbing microscopy for a long time." Greet almost knelt down to kowtow to her senior sister, or hugged her and spun her around. Of course, it was just a pure celebration. But now, with the teacher's phantom in front of him, he could only rack his brains and think hard. Then maybe, some conditions have not been met. For example, when the electron flow appears, it flies around in random directions. We need to use something to constrain it to keep it in the same direction and focus on a certain point, for example, electrostatic field, such as magnetic field. For another example, electrons are too small and can easily be knocked away if they hit something on the road. Therefore, the vacuum should be maintained as much as possible from the end of the electron flow to the sample. Another example, the sample should be cut as thin as possible, say, thinner than the thinnest strand of human hair. Anything else? That's all I thought of." Greet spread his hands. There was nothing he could do about it. In his previous life, he graduated early and started working early. He had only heard about electron microscopy, scanning electron microscopy, cryo-electron microscopy, and tunneling electron microscopy, but had never even touched them. No way. An electron microscope is extremely expensive, costing tens of millions of dollars. It's not as good as his newly graduated juniors. After all, the country is rich and can afford an electron microscope. They can also take a look at it and even do an experiment. The Lord of Thunder listened quietly to Gretel's words. The eyes of the lightning humanoid flickered, and the eyes of the lightning cat also flickered. It seemed that after the data was sent back, the main body had already begun experiments, and at the worst, it had also begun to make inferences. Anything else? Also, why can't viruses be seen with optical microscopes? Maybe we can talk to those great masters who study the nature of light, that is, those who study whether light is a wave or a particle, what is the wavelength of light, and so on. Those great masters. Well, as for who can discover the interference or diffraction phenomenon of light, discover the Poisson bright spot, or even figure out double-slit interference? Who will simply discover the wave-particle duality of light? These discoveries will advance the strength of the Parliament a few steps and explode a few heads. Greed had no idea. In short, let's leave it to the omnipotent teacher. The teacher is a legendary mage anyway. The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. There was another crackle. If it weren't for the fact that the projection made by lightning couldn't make subtle expressions, Gretel almost thought that the lightning humanoid rolled its eyes at him. Immediately, the Lord of Thunder replied impatiently. "No." The little guy didn't speak, but when he spoke, his tone became louder and louder. The archmages who are qualified to study the nature of light are all the top mages in the council, and what's even more troublesome is that they are incompatible with each other. After visiting the master of the wave theory, then visit the master of the particle theory. Although he will not be kicked out as a legendary mage, it still takes a lot of effort to get them to cooperate with the research willingly. This kid will cause trouble for the teacher. Anything else? Also, it's about identifying bloodline. Greet tried hard to use his brain, and tried to ask a few more questions before the teacher's projection disappeared. I personally suspect that the power inspired by distinguished bloodline may be a variety of complex invisible lights, that is to say, a variety of waves with different wavelengths. Is it possible to split this magic and then use various waves to give it a try and see what you can see? This is not the research field of the plasticity department, the Lord of Thunder sighed. Greet nodded quickly. Definitely not. Definitely not. But I thought, maybe the prophecy department and the change department would be interested? Don't they often face many mixtures and need to identify the ingredients and impurities in them? I think they might be interested. If the department is not interested, then just leave the subject to others. You can also collect wool from other departments, no, researchers and research funds from other departments. The lightning humanoid was silent for a moment, seemed to want to float, and then stopped. After a pause, his voice became a little colder. Any more? There is no such thing for the moment. Let the necromancers continue to study the vaccine or something, let them continue to study the strange cells. Gretel replied as he thought. I have a question, teacher. After advancing to level 11, I have some ideas about 6th ring spells. Teacher, what is the essence of dissociation? What type of energy does it use? Well, what do you think? I guess it's magnetism, or electromagnetism. Gretel stared at the lightning humanoid eagerly. Having invented alternating current for so long, the council should have some experience with the conversion of electricity and magnetism, right? Especially the teacher and Sister Philby can feel it intuitively. But I haven't studied this spell, I just made a guess based on its casting materials. Teacher, is this true? The possibility is indeed great. To Gretel's delight, the Lord of Thunder confirmed his conjecture. I have used electromagnets, coils, and coils wrapped around magnets instead of magnets to cast spells. The conclusion is that increasing the magnetism of the electromagnet or increasing the current of the coil can increase the lethality of the dissociation spell, or reduce its spell casting loss. Gretel's eyes lit up. That's great. That means that as long as he holds a coil wrapped around a magnet in his hand, first triggers an electrical magic, and lets strong current pass through the coil, the power of the dissociation spell will increase exponentially. Teacher, thank you so much. What's there to thank you for? It's true that you should practice these spells quickly. The mages of Thunderhorn, even if they can't go beyond level 5 or 6 challenges, they must at least protect themselves in front of enemies of level 3 or 4. Don't let me worry when you're out. Yes, teacher. We must do it, Teacher, Greet stood up straight. By the way, teacher, are there any other secrets to improve the power of spells, or the latest discoveries? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1060. Want tips on increasing your power? In the Tower of Babel, the Lord of Thunder rolled his eyes silently. Well, no one saw it anyway. He is the only one in the study. The tower spirit will not disturb him now. The rolling eyes of the main body will not be transmitted to the projection. Secret, secret, you know the secret day in and day out? If you don't memorize spell models well, if you don't practice spell applications well, if you don't learn magic well, you won't put in a lot of effort to study, try, and change it. If you don't study the fighting process of your predecessors, you don't hone your fighting instincts, and you don't go out and accumulate combat experience. I have been immersed in the laboratory all day, and when I want to improve my combat effectiveness, I just want to take shortcuts. The Lord of Thunder really wanted to slap Gretel in front of him like this. Well, most of his disciples, including the mages of Thunderhorn, are strong in combat. Level 3 can fight against level 5, level 5 can fight against level 7 and 8, level 9 can fight against level 12. Oh, actually Gretel did it too. Thinking of this, I suddenly felt calm. It's not that Gretel doesn't work hard, it's just that the place where he works hard is not within the common range of evocation mages. He always uses some strange methods to increase his combat effectiveness on a daily basis. For example, pure oxygen and explosive fireball technique, such as liquid nitrogen ice wall technique, such as direct current cardioversion cardiac arrest technique. And his research, going around and around, sometimes can indeed improve combat effectiveness. For this reason, I won't criticize him. The secret? When to act, under what circumstances, what magic to choose and what combination of magic. A small part of these depends on memorization, and most of it depends on actual combat experience and tempering. In addition, choose what suits you. The method is also very important. Teacher, Greet shouted with a bitter face. I'm just asking, is there anything I can do to directly increase the power of spells without spending too much time on training? Don't scold me without asking. Don't even hit me. There were crackling crackles on your lightning figure, which made me panic. No, go away and do your own research. The Lord of Thunder wanted to say this very much. However, looking at this young apprentice who was not doing his job but was advancing rapidly, thinking that he would still be hanging out for at least a few years, and thinking about the various contributions he had made to the Parliament, the legendary mage still felt soft. Okay. Let me tell you first about the recent achievements of the Parliament. First of all, let's confirm. Have you read all the recent journals? Read all the major journals? Greet nodded quickly. Because there is an 18th level archmage sitting in charge and a mage tower drawing the power of the Eagle Kingdom, the council is very generous in delivering news. Arcane, Magic, and Ordinary Magicians Monthly, these three journals, on the day they are published, will be directly connected to the Grand Mage Tower in Tenok City from the Tower Spirit of Babel Tower. Compared to the east coast of the New World, the research conditions in the Eagle Country are much better. After all, the East Coast is occupied by the Congress, and the Eagle Country is someone else's territory, so don't feel bad about it. Of course, this information transmission is limited to the three most important journals, once a month. Other unimportant papers, papers that are not yet published in the schedule, and those that want to look up relevant information after seeing a certain paper, are basically gone. Well, that's good. I won't talk about what has been published. The important results that have not been published yet are the protection system. Archmage Samson successfully invented a method to add infrared rays to the rainbow magic wall to resist an attack on the magic wall at close range. Gretel opened his mouth and closed it again. Teacher, except for the rainbow wall and the rainbow ball, the rainbow series of spells all belong to the plastic energy system? This discovery is indeed very useful to me. However, I basically didn't learn much about the rainbow light series of spells. What I need now is to enhance the spells I can use, rather than skipping a level and learning the 7th level rainbow spell wall. Besides, this discovery has one more effect, rather than doubling the lethality. Well, this discovery has great potential and is very pioneering, but it is actually a bit redundant. If a mage is beaten by a warrior in front of the rainbow magic wall, what he needs is not to resist, but to move immediately. The Lord of Thunder made a rant and continued to explain. The Archmage Caceres of the Conjuration Department has recently combined with the Change Department to improve the method of making magic tattoos, turning manual operations into magic equipment operations, which greatly improves the success rate of production. He closed his mouth and looked at Greet, as if expecting what kind of questions Greet would ask. Sure enough, Gretel thought for a moment, raised his hand and said, "Teacher, how to position the tattoo needle? Do you use multidirectional ultrasonic waves to depict the outline of the human body, or use multidirectional light reflection to position? Who is in charge of the tattoo calculation? Is it a tower spirit? Or is there a lower level artificial, can the intelligence host it?" The Lord of Thunder had a smile on his face and answered each question one by one. This kid really didn't disappoint him. The questions he asked were all the most valuable. Greet listened to everything one by one, then turned his head and thought for a moment, feeling a little disappointed. It's very difficult to convert it into combat effectiveness in a short period of time. It's really difficult to quickly capture images, determine the location, correct the strike angle, and calculate the lead time. You also need to design a set of portable spells. Teacher, let me think about this slowly. Hey, it sounds like a Da Vinci robot with automatic guides, which would be very useful for enhancing surgical precision. However, the research and development of this magic does not seem to be a matter of a day or two. The Lord of Thunder did not embarrass him and continued to introduce. As he talked about the plastic energy system. In the cryogenic laboratory of Senior Brother Chi, 2 boys discovered a strange phenomenon. Immersing mercury in an extremely cold liquid, even colder than liquid nitrogen, the resistance of the mercury would suddenly change. Down to about 0. What? Superconducting. Low temperature superconductivity. Have you proven this? Gretel suddenly jumped up. Teacher, this is good, this is good. Please help me prove whether this thing can be used in lightning spells. His heart was pounding. The destructive power of lightning spells is on par with that of the fire spells. In some cases, the ability to break through tough situations is even better than that of the fire spells. However, the fire type has a double bonus, and the electric type has basically no way to add bonuses to Gretel. Well, if he didn't find it, it means that he can only play at a level suitable for this level. It means that learning this is not cost-effective. It means that in the past, he just learned it casually and forget about it. But, superconductivity. Electricity spells, whether high level or low level, are essentially a bolt of lightning that strikes the enemy. Since it is lightning, it has to face high losses in the process of penetrating the air. You know, air is a poor conductor of electricity, almost an insulator. Let me try. The Lord of Thunder raised an eyebrow and asked in disbelief. This kid is getting more and more courageous, and he even orders it to the head of the teacher. Just ask me to try. Am I your teacher, or are you my teacher? Oh, teacher. Greet's teacher was called in many twists and turns, and its sweetness was approximately equivalent to honey, a supersaturated solution of glucose and fructose. After shouting, he immediately became confident again. Teacher, your research conditions are convenient here. Let me do this experiment. I can't compress air. I can't cool it. I can't knead that kind of liquid that's colder than liquid nitrogen. It's not expensive to find someone to knead it out. Very high. He mentioned 3 or 4 difficulties at once, saying that he really couldn't do it. Then, continue to speak plausibly. Teacher, you can make it easily. Make it, use it as a casting material, and try to release electrical magic. Anyway, many electrical magics use copper wires as casting materials, isn't it just to simulate wires? At this time, Greed spoke as fast as he could, so fast that the Lord of Thunder had no time to interrupt. After finishing a long paragraph, I breathed a sigh of relief, followed by another long paragraph. Use magic to simulate those copper wires so that lightning can be transmitted to the enemy more efficiently. Teacher, if you create a superconducting phenomenon, for example, the copper wires you carry on your body will turn into a ball filled with copper wires or something else. Cryogenic liquid tube, simulated superconducting device. This has already been tried. The Lord of Thunder interrupted him unbearably. Thunder and lightning magic, especially thunder and lightning attack magic, is greatly enhanced. The power of spells of 6 levels and above can be almost increased by 1 level. As for those below 6 levels, you know. Oh, it's indeed a teacher. A discerning eye? When you discover superconductivity, you know it's very useful for lightning magic. Gretel turned on the flattery mode without thinking. After flattering him, he immediately hit the snake and put it on the stick. Teacher, since the effect is very good, just get me a batch. It's best to get 300 to 500 sets. If I go out on adventures, I won't have to worry about combat effectiveness. If the Lord of Thunder was not in the projection state, I really wanted to call him a magic missile on his forehead on the spot. Even in the projection state, he still felt a little itchy. 300 to 500 sets? How much does this thing cost you? Do you know how many sets a level 15 Archmage can produce in a day? It costs 300 to 500 sets. Do you think that even if I give the order, you can get it in a month? How many sets are there? Well. He squirted, and Greed shrank a little. He squirted again, and Gretel shrank a little more. After spraying in one breath, Greed had completely retracted into his seat, wishing he could hold up a big book in front of him. Just give me a little bit, teacher. You also hope that I can be safe when I'm outside, that I have a trump card at hand, and that I'm not afraid of being bullied, right? That depends on your own value, the Lord of Thunder sighed. Not to mention how much 300 to 500 sets of superconducting devices, even superconducting simulation devices, would cost. How much would it cost to transport them all the way from Nevis? Well, think of some way to save the council as much as possible, at least, save the council's freight. By the way, what's your next plan? He remembered another important thing and asked seriously. You are already level 11. When do you plan to visit Elf Island? Teacher. Greed's face immediately turned bitter. I do not want to go. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Tomorrow will be the last 3 days, and the monthly ticket sprint should be coming soon. Remember to save your monthly tickets and prepare to give them to me. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1061. I don't want to go to Elf Island. The Lord of Thunder was not too surprised by this answer. If Gretel wanted to go, or in other words, if he was really looking forward to going, he would have already packed his bags and tried to find a way to Elf Island when he first reached level 10. Of course, in Greed's view, perhaps developing a vaccine is much more important and more urgent than exploring Elf Island. But even so, when he was building a research institute and researching vaccines, he would always have a word with Bayarbit, right? He didn't even mention it, and he didn't take out the map on the pendant for consultation. The Lord of Thunder even suspected that Gretel had never touched the pendant after he advanced to level 10. Maybe he really didn't want to go there. However, the Lord of Thunder is still a little disappointed. Really don't want to go? The magic of elves is very unique. Speaking of which, many of the earliest magics of humans were learned from elves. I also went there once when I was young and benefited a lot. I really don't plan to go and have a look. Although the council does not agree with every high-level mage going, after all, the elves are still very strong, especially on the Gukshuan island. If a legendary mage breaks in, he may not be able to come back. However, the mage who has the opportunity to visit you guys, going there once can indeed increase your knowledge a lot. This kid is half elf, has a road sign to Elf Island, and has an entry permit, but he doesn't want to go? Waste. I really don't want to go. Gretel shook his head awkwardly. Why are you going? For 16 years, no one has come to see me to see if I am dead or alive and how I am doing. Just throw a pendant to guide me and let me go by myself. I have to go obediently. Who knows what the relatives are like over there? Who knows whether the mother of this body, will fall in love with an illegitimate child of a noble somewhere. She is probably not very old yet, in terms of the age of an elf. Even after 20 years, she is still a young girl, has fallen in love with other people. Did you get married again? If there is a new family or a new child, wouldn't he come all the way to make trouble for others? Who knows what the elves over there think of him? When I was a doctor, the most annoying thing was that patients had complicated family relationships. A patient was lying on the bed. His ex-wife said he didn't want to be treated, but his second wife said he wanted to be treated. The eldest son had nothing to do with her, and the younger daughter insisted on being treated but refused to pay. The chatter can make the doctor's head explode. If you are lucky enough to reach an agreement, you can sign various risk notification sheets, surgery confirmations, critical illness notifications, etc., and pay the money quickly. The fear is that one person is willing to sign, but several are unwilling to sign. Those who are unwilling to sign still insist on pinching the doctor to cure the patient. Those who theoretically have a duty to support patients, but who live very far away and have no chance to take care of them, have a particularly high medical trouble index. For this reason, doctors even invented a proper term called Tianbian Duozi syndrome. In short, Gretel hates all such complicated relationships. It would be even more disrespectful and insensitive to let him sharpen his head and jump in. Moreover, this body is not his, but the original owner's. Are you rushing to find the original owner's mother? It feels so weird. Gretel did not tell the teacher all these concerns. However, as a legendary mage, having overlooked this world for so many years, the Lord of Thunder naturally understands many things. He sighed secretly. I didn't expect that when I'm more than half my age, I still need to provide psychological counseling to my disciples. I haven't done this job for how many years? Those two, Baebo, were his disciples when they were still at a low level. At that time, the choices were narrow, and the disciples would inevitably have various problems that required him to worry about. When you advance to level 18, level 19, or even a legendary mage, the selection of disciples becomes more and more strict. Basically, those who have psychological problems, are extreme, and are prone to extremes cannot come to him. Returning to my old job after decades is still a bit unaccustomed. Household affairs are a mess that cannot be easily sorted out by outsiders. However, what needs to be done still needs to be done. The Lord of Thunder shook his head in disapproval. It's best to go there. On the one hand, between level 10 and 15, try to expand your knowledge as much as possible, which is very important for subsequent advancement. On the other hand, before becoming a legend, it's best to settle all the things that can be settled. Now, don't have any regrets. What? In this world, Are there things like resolving the cause and effect and resolving the knots in the heart? You have to make enough contributions to the world and pay off all your debts before you can smoothly ascend, no, successfully become a legend. Okay. He responded dejectedly. Alas, there is still no way to escape, and we have to stage a brave journey to the deadly island, no, a brave journey to the elf island. Oh, the letter left by the original owner's mother seemed to call the island Yangju Island. Teacher, please be sure to send me the superconducting materials. I don't dare to rush there without having anything to calm down the situation. Lord of Thunder. Looking at you like this, are you going to turn the elf island upside down? Wake up, 6 ring, 7 ring, even 9 ring magic cannot cause trouble in elf island. Okay, I'll help you think of a way to send a few sets over as soon as possible, he responded angrily. Just as he was about to cut off the communication, he thought about it and warned again. By the way, if everything goes well when you go to Elf Island this time, forget it. If you get into trouble, don't say my name. With a crackling sound, the communication was cut off, and the lightning humanoid disintegrated and sank into the body of the lightning cat. Gretel was left sitting blankly on the chair, staring blankly at the lightning cat, which was licking its fur and paws and burying its head between its hind legs. What does the teacher mean by this? Are you afraid that if I get into trouble and tell you what I am, a group of elves will come to beat you? No, why do you have so little confidence in me? How do I look like a monkey? How does it look like it will cause havoc in heaven? What does it look like to be destined for trouble? Or teacher, when you went to Elf Island, what big disaster did you get into that people will remember firmly for decades, maybe hundreds of years? Speak clearly. Unfortunately, it is impossible to explain clearly. Transcontinental projection communication is only once, and it is unlikely that there will be a second time in the short term. Moreover, it can only be initiated by the Lord of Thunder. Gretel cannot initiate it. Greet climbed up from the desk with a sigh, planning to find a place with abundant thunder and lightning to take the lightning cat to charge for a few days. The Lord of Thunder ended the communication and immediately called the tower spirit to send Gretel's new paper to all the legends. Look. Look. There are a lot of interesting new things in this paper. He's showing off his apprentice again, Ms. Helena of the Conjuration Department's Song of the Deep Seaside. Alas, it's not wrong to show off your apprentice or anything, but Christine, please control it. Every time you show off, the immortal will follow suit. Whenever you two show off, the mystery chain will shake. As the maintainer of Igor's mystery lock, do you know that you have caused me a lot of trouble? That's right, showing off your apprentice is really abominable. Ms. Almeida, who was in the control department Philosopher's Rose, also sighed. Speaking of which, the brainwave research project she had worked with Thunderhorn and Black Crow Swamp for so many years felt like it was just the beginning. And what about Greet? What has Greet been up to? After abandoning this subject, he ran from Nevis to the royal capital, from the royal capital back to Nevis, then from Nevis to the New World, and from the New World to the Eagle Country. How many subjects has he changed during this time? Every time I do something, I stop doing it, and I just leave one behind and give it to someone else, and he goes to play with a new one. Tell me, what's new this time? Lord Ripley of the Change Department's Jade Crown silently opened the paper and started browsing. Alas, it's always medical, medical, medical. It's quite troublesome to find something related to the change system among these medical-related things. Speaking of which, the quick pain relief equipment last time, the Transformation series, sold very well and made a lot of money. However, the war has ended recently, and equipment sales have declined visibly, and we are looking for a new profit growth point. Et. Virus identification and directional killing instrument. This is good. Mr. Ripley looked at it, and his hand began to draw on the table. After a few strokes, It was still not enough, so I opened Silent Phantom directly. Let me think about how to design this thing, how to connect it. Distinguish bloodline and change, identify bacteria and parasites. You can't use the same magic circle. How to design a universal interface, MRS Ender. Come and take a look too. I'm watching. MRS Ender of the prophecy department looked impatient. God knows that she is from the astrology branch, not the identification branch. Those spells such as detecting thoughts, identifying bloodlines, and identifying weaknesses are not her main direction of attack. When can Gretel bring back that little silver dragon? Without the silver dragon, the research progress of the Star Dome has returned to the slow pace before. The idea of identifying bloodline and changing is very good, old man. How about we work together on a project? Split this magic and these beams one by one, analyze them one by one, and see what we can research. I'm afraid we can't do it alone. Jade Crown. Mr. Ripley shook his head. I scanned around the network of legends and called out the ones from the protection and conjuration departments. As for the nature of this spell and the nature of these beams, let's study it together. The legends are all talking about it, and everyone sees considerable research potential in Greet's paper. The Lord of Thunder smiled and listened to their chat. After a long time, he coughed and raised his voice to interrupt. By the way, do you want to publish this paper in the new issue of the journal? Don't want. Don't want. The two legends of the protection department and the prophecy department shouted out at the same time. Time and space barrier, Mr. Steiner said slowly. Don't let the glorious Holy See know that we have a vaccine. It's one thing for them to find out, but it's another thing to have accurate information that we publicly admit. We can do a lot of things by taking advantage of this time difference. It is said that yellow fever has become prevalent on the Storm Islands. Well done, offense is the best defense. If the yellow fever makes a fuss like this, the Holy See will not be able to spare its resources for at least 2 or 3 years. Then, the Lord of Thunder crossed his fingers and leaned back comfortably. Since the paper must be kept confidential, how about some compensation for little Greet? What would you like? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. The last 3 days. Your monthly ticket will expire if you don't vote. Hurry up and vote for me. Is it possible to get 2,000 votes today? Thanks to @bookfriend 160129085821201 for the reward of 1,000 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1062. In any case, the legendary mages who have obtained the benefits, at least, they have obtained the research direction they are interested in, of course cannot be stingy in taking action. The Lord of Thunder successfully obtained a bunch of resources, and soon he picked and exchanged them for 300 superconducting suits for Gretel, delivered within 5 days. Well, as long as they pay enough, there are still some high-level mages in the council who are willing to rush the work. Isn't it just compressing the air, cooling the air, purifying the air, and then dipping the wires in it? After completing the superconducting suit, the Lord of Thunder also used the resources to recruit a small airship from the Parliament. Send Archmage Carlyle on a special trip to deliver the goods to Gretel. Archmage Carlyle, why is it me again? Teacher, you have changed. Ever since Gretel entered the door, no, ever since Gretel entered your sight, I am no longer your most beloved little apprentice. For little Greet's sake, you're even happy to see my jokes. Despite this, Archmage Carlyle still received the goods conscientiously, boarded the small airship conscientiously, not the one he took when he first met Gretel, conscientiously crossed the ocean, and then across the continent, flying to the heroic Eagle country. The Lord of Thunder made it clear, although Gretel is still in the Eagle Kingdom, he will run to the southern part of the New World or even to the Elf Island at some point. There is an elf beside him, a high-level druid warrior of about level 16. Although it won't be enough to kidnap him, it will be easy to lead him out. If you arrive late and Gretel has already set off with the elf, you have to find a way to find someone yourself and be sure to deliver the things. The inability to deliver things led to a lack of combat effectiveness, and the lack of combat effectiveness led to Gretel making some mistakes. Oh, the Lord of Thunder didn't explain this sentence, but Archmage Carlyle didn't understand it either. In terms of research results, development potential, and contribution to the Parliament, greed was much more important than him in any direction. To put it bluntly, if he and Gretel were in danger together, even he would try his best to rescue Gretel from danger first. So even though Archmage Carlyle muttered, he didn't delay at all. He added enough magic crystals to the airship and drove off. The speed of the small airship was even faster than that of the large airship that could hold hundreds of people. It rushed all the way and arrived at Tenok City in just over half a month. Stop in front of the research institute, go down and ask. Gretel? Climbing the mountain. Archmage Jennings personally showed him the way. Carlyle raised his head and looked up at the snow-capped mountain in the distance, his eyes getting brighter and brighter. Good place. Just standing here and looking at the topography of the snow peaks, he had an intuition, the elemental power in this place must be very abundant. Where did Gretel choose to go climbing? He finally thought about it. He wanted to find a place with abundant elemental power to meditate. Although the meditation room in the Mage Tower was good, it could not replace the natural treasure place. He wanted to practice spellcasting and work hard to improve his level and combat effectiveness. I'll go take a look. Carlyle thanked Archmage Jennings and parked the small airship. He looked up at the snow-capped mountains, and with a flick of his hand, a bolt of lightning fell out of thin air. Crack! Where the lightning struck, Archmage Carlyle disappeared from the spot and appeared in the lightning in the distance. Immediately afterwards, there was another flash of lightning, which had already brought him to the foot of the mountain. In this way, he used lightning to continuously jump, and in a moment, he appeared on the top of the high mountain. Standing at the circular mountain pass and looking around, one can see a blanket of white snow. The most eye-catching thing is an oak stick stuck on the mountain pass. It is more like an oak tree than an oak staff, with a tall trunk and flowing branches and leaves. Among the leaves, a silver-white kitten lay lazily, curled up into a ball and sleeping soundly. At a glance, the white hairs are connected to the white hairs, and the white hairs press the white hairs. Even the head, ears, and pink cat nose are nowhere to be seen. This is the teacher's lightning cat. Just give it to Greed. Archmage Carlyle felt bitterly, and then turned his gaze, trying to find where Gretel was. With this scan, I saw two girls standing side by side at the bottom of the circular mountain pass, laughing and clapping their hands in encouragement. Gretel! Work harder! Run faster! Gretel! Run back and forth again! Gretel! Huh! Where is Greed? Looking more closely, in the snow below the mountain pass, a black panther was stumbling and stumbling. The left front paw comes out first, then the right front paw touches the ground, then the left rear paw, then the right rear paw. Run a few steps, slide a little, run a few more steps, slide a little more. After running too much, I don't know when, gradually I became the same person with the same hands and feet. The Black Panther ran a few more steps and saw a snowdrift in front of him. He slowed down slightly and tried to go around it from the side. However, he used the wrong strength under his feet and rolled with his back to Snowdonia, even his light-colored belly turned out. It raised its legs and danced wildly in the air twice before raising its forepaws and moving them to the left together. He pushed his tail to the right, twisted his spine flexibly, and finally found a way to turn over. The movements were clumsy and the wrestling was so brutal that Archmage Carlyle couldn't help but cover his forehead just by looking at it. It was so terrible. Wait, is this Gretel? Gretel, unable to transform into a dragon, finally began to practice the transformation of a Black Panther in a serious way. Your ability to move, you might as well remain unchanged. There is no Black Panther like you. If I were an enemy, I would catch you first and beat you. If it really doesn't work, why don't you use your strengths and avoid your weaknesses? Why don't you give full play to your characteristics as a mage? Even if it's flying or floating, let the phantom pony carry you, summon a floating saucer to sit on, and then get something to drag you. Walk. Don't do this either. He took a deep breath to calm himself down and avoid being too embarrassed in front of the two ladies. Well, one was Cyrilla, he recognized it, and the other one with short green hair and carrying a spear should be the female elf warrior. Fortunately, he was traveling quickly. If he had been slower, Gretel would have been abducted by the elf, and he might have to go to the deep mountains and forests to find someone. Although as a level 15 magician, he still has a lot of tracking methods so that he can't find anyone, but it's annoying. Gretel! Archmage Carlyle shouted from the top of the mountain. Hearing his shout, Cyrilla looked up and then waved to him vigorously. The Black Panther also raised his head and glanced upward, then raised his head, then raised his head, and then raised his head again. Turn your head, tilt your head, twist your spine into a strange arc. Overturned. Fortunately, the Black Panther's center of gravity was relatively low, so he rolled and landed on all fours again. Shaking his head, a burst of light green light suddenly appeared on his body. When the light faded, standing there was a young mage wearing a loose cloth robe with a gray face and a rip in the east and west. Senior Brother Carlyle. When did you come? Gretel raised his head and shouted, his voice full of joy. Archmage Carlyle even heard a hint of relief. Thank God, someone finally came to interrupt, I can finally skip class, and I finally don't have to practice any more today. 2 hours later, Gretel was at home. Archmage Carlyle began to take out supplies one box after another from the space bag. This is the superconducting set you want. There are 10 sets in a box, 30 boxes in total. The teacher called a group of plastic magicians and rushed them out. He also made some of them himself, save some. That's all before you go back to Nevis. Wow, Senior Brother Carlyle, you are so good. 30 metal boxes are lined up in a pile on the table. It looked like fine gold mixed with mithril. Gretel couldn't help but sigh. The production of mithril had indeed increased, and it was made of some other metal, and it actually felt slightly warm to the touch. I tentatively opened the box and took a look. It was divided into 10 small grids. There was a cold air flowing in each small grid, but it was firmly locked by the magic circle. Even if the lid of the box was opened, there would not be any leakage. Greet smiled happily and stuffed each item into his own space bag. Archmage Carlyle looked at him and shook his head slightly. So, you squat in the mountain pass every day just to practice the transformation technique. Sister Uge originally wanted me to practice on the road, but the Black Panther form is too difficult. Gretel lowered his head in dismay. If you want to move quickly in the jungle, the Black Panther form is the most convenient, but I can't even walk well on flat ground. If I walk a little faster, I can use the same hands and feet. You want to go to the jungle? It's over, the teacher was right, little Gretel was about to be abducted by the elf. Although it is not necessary to go to Elf Island and never come back, but with little Gretel's combat ability, and even such physical movement ability, entering the jungle. It's really not reassuring. Here, Sister Jasmine's father has news. He said that he followed his friends to explore the elven ruins. Most of the people who went there died. Sister Jasmine's father got a strange disease and was sealed in a tree. Greet explained everything to his senior brother. By the way, I can also report my whereabouts to the teacher, so that the teacher can rest assured. I plan to go over and take a look. The place they are in is a dense rainforest, which is not easy to walk. Now I am waiting for Sister Jasmine's husband. Uncle Hawthorne has just finished his advancement. We will wait for him to adjust to his condition. Set off. Fortunately, I arrived quickly and slowly. Archmage Carlyle shook off a cold sweat. If I had arrived a little slower, would you have gone into the old forest? Then, I will definitely wait for you. Greet spread his hands in an unusually innocent manner. I calculate that you will always arrive within 2 months. Anyway, Sister Jasmine's father has been sealed in the ancient tree for so many years, so it is not less than 2 months. By the way, after I go there, I will take a look at the situation. Maybe go to Elf Island. What? Going to Elf Island? Teacher, no, little Gretel is really going to be abducted by the elves. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's the last 3 days of the month. Everyone, please try your best to vote for me. If you don't vote again, it will expire and become invalid. Thanks to @MaleProtagonist for the 100,000 starting coins. Thanks to @Crazy for the 500 starting coin reward. If you have a large reward in the future, please use the web version. The Apple mobile version will deduct a lot of money from Apple and will arrive 3 months late. Thanks to @Zero for the 2-way foil tip of 100 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1063. I'm so sorry to trouble you so much. Ms. Jasmine was carrying a large rucksack and thanked Greet with some embarrassment. For my father's sake, I have to trouble you to travel so far. Beside her, Mr. Hawthorne's tall figure of 1.9 meters was slightly bent. He even squatted a little, trying to compress himself to the same height as Gretel, and nodded repeatedly. After receiving Ms. Uge's letter, the couple closed the shop and rushed to the research institute. Under the full attention of the 4 therapists, Mr. Hawthorne completed the advanced stage. Pay attention to vital signs to ensure the safety of the advanced process. Greet also sent a little snake to conduct a detailed knee joint examination on Mr. Hawthorne. Make sure that the knee, muscles, ligaments, meniscus, synovial bursa, and all the tissues that have been exposed to the ice pick have recovered to their best condition. It's okay, I wanted to walk around. Gretel raised a smile to them. Without you, I would also like to visit the southern part of the New World. With you, we can just go together on the road. Besides dash. He blinked briskly and said in a sweet tone. Sister Jasmine, if I get greedy along the way, I have to rely on you. No problem, leave it all to me. Ms. Jasmine agreed without thinking. AI11 Uge, who was beside him, laughed softly. And me? Using ingredients from the jungle, I'm no worse than anyone else. Greet smiled at her awkwardly. Bernard curled his lips silently. The food made by the elves is delicious, but the portion is always too small. Humph, to fill his stomach, he has to take action from his Uncle Bernard. Sarala crossed her arms and looked on with a smile. Well, the Silver Dragon girl doesn't care who cooks, she only cares that the food is delicious enough. Of course, on the premise of being delicious, it would be better if the quantity is large enough. Gretel finally set off. Pick up your backpack and embark on the long journey. The entire institute and the unfinished projects in the institute were left to Black Crow Swamp. Of course Sarara, Bernard, and Appa followed him. Sarara wanted to see a more interesting world, but Bernard didn't think much of it. Anyway, he followed the boss wherever he went. As for Appa, it is said that there are deer in the rainforest. There are beautiful silver deer. There are beautiful female silver deer. There are also unicorns. Do you want to go with us? Hold head high. The silver moon deer lit up its big head into a silver light. Go. Go, go, go. You must go with the boss. Everything else about Nevis is good, except that there are no powerful monsters. There is no strong and beautiful doe that is worthy of him, Uncle Appa. The rainforest, the remote rainforest, the remote rainforest that can breed such powerful elves, you must be able to find the beautiful female deer. Lin stood at the entrance of the institute and said goodbye with a smile. As a magician who majored in death and bones, plagues and viruses did not inspire him, but the newly discovered cells gave him a very strange feeling. Then, Brother Lin, be careful here. Gretel gave the final warning and turned to Mr. Barancimo. Brother Lin's safety will be left to you. When he returns to Nevis, you will be responsible for escorting him back safely. This employment is over. As for the remuneration, you already gave it to me. The middle-aged warrior's expression showed no signs of change and he answered calmly. Armor, weapons, armor, various medicinal materials, various spell-casting scrolls. Before setting off from Nevis, Greed had spent enough resources on him to hire him for more than 3 to 5 years. Not to mention, there was basically no danger along the way, and there was no time when he needed to work hard. Gretel would also share with him any spoils. I will follow him until he reaches Nevis safely. Don't worry. Greed smiled, nodded, turned, and left. A group of people meandered along the lake shore. The scorching sun in the Eagle country shone overhead and gradually moved to the west, making their figures look longer and longer. The Plague Lord is finally gone. In the temple, the pale golden shadow swayed gently, making a sound that mortals could not hear. On the other side of the temple hall, a mass of black energy quietly gathered and responded with a hiss. Yes, finally gone. He smells so good, it smells so good, although it's not as fragrant as when I first smelled it, it still smells good. Restrain it, the pale golden shadow slapped his hands, then became quiet again, his tone suddenly a little harsh. 2 masters beside him. 2. Although they are not as strong as us, the 2 of them together can barely withstand one of us. Moreover, as long as they fight, those white ghosts will be alerted. Those white ghosts are so annoying, they are so tormenting. Hiss, my temple, my gold, the gold on my maids. Forget it, the most troublesome lord of the plague, isn't he already gone? The pale golden shadow stopped at the top of the statue, and his voice softly persuaded. As for gold, didn't those white ghosts bring us gold? The continuous flow of gold is much faster than the previous tribute. But that's our gold, hiss, our gold mine. That's gold sleeping underground. My golden eagle warriors can't dig deep into the ground. Although your snake spirits can dig into the ground, the female snakes can't dig. Let them dig, and we can get more. If the magicians in the parliament heard this discussion, they would definitely sneer. The mining and smelting technology of the natives is really poor. Only shallow mineral deposits can be mined. For slightly deeper mines, there is no way. It's no wonder they brought people from China. Domestic steam engines, various domestic mining machinery, domestic smelting facilities, domestic mining talents. Gold, silver, ruby, sapphire, tourmaline, opal, obsidian, sunstone. For magicians, gold and silver are valuable spellcasting materials. With a little processing of various gemstones, they can directly become combat power. In the past, the glorious Holy See had the Black Continent and could continuously obtain a large number of high-quality gems, while the Parliament could only obtain some smuggled goods of low quality and high price. Thanks to the Plague Lord, we now have a stable supply of gems. Greed, who was thanked by the council and complained about by the eagle god and the snake god, rode the phantom pony and swayed. Thanks to the magic, thanks to the phantom pony, this kind of mount can go up mountains and cross rivers as easily as walking on flat ground without shaking at all. He can even read a book on horseback. He could read while on horseback. At the end of the day's trip, when we arrived at the campsite, Uncle Hawthorne was busy setting up tents, digging ditches, and setting up cordons. Ms. Jasmine was busy cooking, and Gretel started his special training. Leopards don't run like this. Look what you look like. One paw moves, but three paws stick to the ground and refuse to let go. Cats can run faster than you. Meow. The lightning cat with silver white fur was rolling next to it, licking its fur, and squealing in mockery. After shouting, he jumped up and took a few steps nimbly. He turned back and jumped out from Gretel again. Greet, T. T. Now I believe you are a cat. Even if the teacher looks at me with your eyes, you will not use the body of a cat to jump back and forth. But complaining about lightning cat does not solve the problem. Gretel finished complaining and continued running hard. Ashuedge kept giving pointers beside her. Forget how you want to run. You are a leopard. Your body is a leopard. Follow your instincts and nature will guide your actions. Your body will tell you how to run. Gretel, T. T. He meditated hard, tried to calm his mind, and immersed himself in nature. After a while, he started running again. Leopards don't run like this. Front paws. Back paws. Front paws. Back paws. Forget it, just listen to my command. Front paws. Back paws. Front paws. Back paws. Greet. It's so difficult, although I watched Animal World and many documentaries in my previous life, it's really difficult for me to take my turn. Humans walk on two legs. Even when a baby crawls, all four limbs take turns to move forward. Let me first extend my left front paw and right front paw, and then my left rear paw and right rear paw. What is going on? I don't understand it at all. Move your spine. Move your spine. When you extend your front paws, your spine stretches and you try to stretch forward. When you extend your back paws, your spine contracts and you try to curl up. Imagine your four paws, carrying your body forward. Moonsong transformed into a giant black panther, running smoothly beside Gretel and constantly giving instructions. Greet tried hard to recall the video of Animal World, compared her movements, and tried to run like her. Ouch, uh. He wanted to roar, tried to show his majesty, but in the end, he only made a series of low coughs. Use the front paws to extend the spine, follow with the back paws, contract the spine, then the front paws, then the back paws. From a direction beyond sight, the two paws tripped over each other and fell. Where's your tail? Your tail is moving. When a leopard is running, its tail is always moving to balance the body. The tail is raised so high. Are you sleepwalking? Gretel buried his head, turned in a different direction, and started running again with aggrievedness. This time, the tail was flattened, and the running speed was a little faster. After 2 trips back and forth, Ashuedge suddenly changed direction and squeezed him with her body towards the woods. Ouch! About to hit a tree. About to hit a tree. About to hit a tree. Gretel Leopard Nordmark's tail swung like a windmill, and finally, at the last moment, he almost changed direction and brushed against the tree trunk. Behind him, Ashuedge roared loudly. Gretel, you stupid leopard! Don't hit your head. Climb a tree. Can't you climb a tree? Ouch! Meow. The leopard running ahead stumbled with its paws and fell to the ground. This time, he rolled twice skillfully, then stood up, and raised his 2 front paws in turn in an aggrieved manner, showing to Moonsong. Gretel, put your nails away. When you are not climbing trees or running, don't pop your nails out. Look, it's broken. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. There are only the last 36 hours. Can we get 3,000 votes this month? To reach 3,000 votes, including yesterday's leader, the author Meow wrote 6,000 words a day for 15 consecutive days. Thanks to the Strong Sea Monster for the 5,000 starting coins reward. Thanks to Red Comet Mars for the 4,000 starting coins reward. Thanks to Ching Ni and Minjio for the reward of 100 starting coins.